everyone, and welcome to Dream Leapers. I'm your host, Harriette Cole. So happy to have you with me today. And let me get you prepared. Today, you're going to be hungry. Yep, because we have an incredible guest on who's going to be talking all about food. So let me tell you who he is right now. He is Marc Howland. And I want to say, in a time where conversations around food, nutrition, and safety are front and center, like right this minute, we are joined by a founder who is no stranger to rethinking how we eat and how we fuel our lives. Marc Howland is the co founder and CEO of Breadless. Isn't that a good name? It's a Detroit born concept built on a simple concept: fresh, satisfying meals that leave you energized instead of sluggish. Before he was building a brand around leafy green sandwiches, Marc was on a very different path, one that took him through Brown University, into the high stakes world of Goldman Sachs, and later into private equity at Carlyle. But then he walked away. He walked away to start a meaningful brand from the ground up. And when Marc stepped away from corporate, he made the intentional decision to work in a fast casual restaurant for minimum wage. And he did that diligently learning the ins and outs of the business before ever calling himself a founder. Now, this move may be alarming to many of us who like, you did minimum wage after all that education, but it speaks to both his discipline and his belief that real leadership requires lived experience. So in today's episode of Dream Leapers, we will be exploring themes of wellness, entrepreneurship, and success, and what it really means to build a business that means something to you. And don't worry, even as headlines raise concerns about everything from processed ingredients to bacteria and produce, Marc Howland is here to help us manage our fears and help us to make more informed, intentional food choices. Marc Howland, welcome to Dream Leapers.
Thank you so much. Really happy to be here.
So, a sandwich company called Breadless. What an incredibly perfect name. And I know coming up with the name is one of the hardest things to do. Tell us how you came up with this name and this concept.
Yeah, the name was really an output of the vision ultimately. And I did not plan to be the guy in food at all, or the guy launching a fast casual restaurant brand that is bringing feel good fuel to communities everywhere. That was not my plan. I did not know that that's what the Lord had intended for me. But it is, as you mentioned, I had grown up really humble beginnings. My mom was a public defender for 40 years in Cleveland. Wow. So she committed her entire life to improving the quality of life of others and really instilled that in me from a very young age, the impact and contribution and the importance of it, and using your skills to benefit the humanity. And so I was a scholarship kid, as you mentioned. I went to Brown on a full ride. I played varsity football, ran track there. Ended up, as you mentioned, at Goldman Sachs. I didn't know what Goldman Sachs was at the time. I went to an information session after talking to fellow athletes I was playing football with. Hey, what careers are great if I'm great at business econ? They said you should look into investment banking. I was like, what in the world is investment banking? No one in my family has ever been in anywhere close to it. And they didn't think I was terrible, invited me to New York for an internship, which turned into a full-time job. And next thing you know, I'm this kid from Cleveland who's working 80 to 100-hour weeks.
Right.
And from there, went off to the Carlyle Group private equity firm. I also was unaware of what private equity was and was just learning. That's what I was doing before Harvard took a chance on me. So I went there for business school, right? But throughout all of this journey, I was just this kid who's now in this fast-paced lifestyle, trying to keep up. And as a former athlete, trying to find food that would leave me energized and clear-minded and able to be my best every single day. And the options available just weren't cutting it, right? I was going to all these meetings, getting these super heavy sandwiches. Traditional sandwiches made me feel sluggish and tired. Salads just weren't really portable on the go, running between meetings, trying to have all these utensils, chopping stuff, et cetera. And those were the only real options available. So I was just venting to my then, fiance, now wife, like, why isn't there a place that has reinvented the sandwich in a way that is portable, crave-worthy, satiating, that actually is something that you want to eat every single day, that leaves you energized instead of exhausted. And she just started sending me fire emojis saying, I think this can absolutely be real. Can't think of anybody who had lived the problem as much as me. I had worked in finance. She had a background in marketing, advertising, and a similar background from Detroit instead of Cleveland, but then went off to study communications at Boston University, worked for a lot of the top marketing advertising agencies in New York, from Gray, Publicis, Kraftwerks, 360i, Verizon, Microsoft, before coming back to Michigan to get her MBA. So she was now at University of Michigan saying, hey, I'd love to collaborate with you on this idea. And then the two of us looked at ourselves and said, you know, this sounds great and all, but neither one of us knows anything about food. To be
you had all this knowledge, but it wasn't necessarily in that lane.
Wasn't in that lane at all. And so from there, we realized, okay, well, we need to connect with somebody who does know about food. And so that brought our other third co-founder into the mix, Ryan, who we had met in New York, the mutual friends. He had opened restaurants there, was a phenomenal chef. He had traveled the world and really understood bold culinary flavors that are cross-cultural and how to bring that to life. And he had serendipitously moved to Detroit. So now the three of us are in the Michigan area in Detroit while she's in business school, and we say, hey, Ryan, we want to reinvent the sandwich. How are we going to do it? And we started innovating around leafy super greens. And he was like, well, what about Swiss chard? I was like, what the heck is Swiss chard? I was unaware at the time. And Ryan said, come over to my house. We went over his house. We put together some sample prototypes, if you will, of just some recipes that he came up with, and then decided, well, hey, as an athlete, I was thinking, how can we just get feedback and how can we get exposed? And as an athlete, I thought gyms would just be an easy sort of low-hanging fruit. So we just started calling gyms all around Detroit, from LA Fitness, Crunch Fitness, the YMCA, Fitness Works. Have no idea what we're doing, just showing up, acting like we knew who the manager was, and would set up a fold-out table. I had never made a website or anything before, went on GoDaddy to make a website, make a backdrop, take some pictures of me holding a sandwich on an iPhone, and got a Square reader and just started selling sandwiches. And from there, when you asked how do we come up with a name, that was something that we didn't know what we were going to call this at first. And we opened up a Google Doc and just started writing names of, there were probably 100 names on this list, and Breadless was just one of them. And I think one of us, I don't remember who it was like, Breadless, like, what about that? And you know what, it had a nice ring to it. Sure. And at first we're like, you know what, do we want something that describes something? And then we realized at the end of the day, Breadless doesn't actually mean anything. Like if the fact that you say it's breadless doesn't define what it is. It begs a follow-up question. And so we thought that was very intriguing, and ultimately it stuck. So
and then did you go through the thing about names today? You have to go through GoDaddy or a similar thing, and then all social media to see how you can grab it up, right?
Yeah, so that's actually really interesting that you say that, because we wanted to get the trademark on it if that was going to be the name. And so we applied for the trademark, and at first they put us on the supplemental registrar, which means you're not on the principal registrar, meaning you don't fully hold the mark. And the argument was that this was a descriptive term. So then we had to prove out over time that same argument that I just sort of said, that in fact it isn't a descriptive term, because it begs a follow-up question. And we had to build the brand such that at this point, if you Google Breadless, we're the first hit that comes up as opposed to anything else. So we proved that the word Breadless is synonymous now with our brand, therefore able to argue to put us on the principal registrar. So now we are on the principal registrar and hold the trademark on the name Breadless in our category for, of course, restaurants, sandwiches on the go, etc.
That's your wife's marketing skills right there. I hear them.
100%. It's a team effort for sure.
Well, what I like hearing is this: you have 3 members of your business, each with different skills. So you needed those different skills in order to be a strong team. Making a team as a business can also be really challenging, because there are 3 people there. You have different personalities. How do you all work together, and how do you make it work?
Absolutely. I think it really comes down to, first of all, I know some people think of working with a spouse or a significant other isn't a good idea. And for us, it's been incredible. I think that there's no way to replace the level of trust that you have with somebody who's a significant other and spouse. And so I think that was really important. Ryan was also a close friend of ours. But ultimately, I think it comes down to defining roles and responsibility, like who's responsible for what at the end of the day. And so we defined that I would be the CEO, meaning I'm in charge of ultimately the whole brand and everything. LC's lane was defined as communications and marketing. And Ryan's lane was defined as culinary operations. So he's the chef. So like in a tech company, he would be the CTO. But we're a food product company, so he's the chief product officer, as you will, or chief culinary officer. So all things food is Ryan's lane. All things communication and marketing, her lane. All things business and otherwise is my lane.
Excellent. And how long have you all been in business?
Well, we wrote Breadless on a sheet of paper, the idea for it in 2019, and then from there started the pop-ups and local gyms like LA Fitness, Crunch Fitness, the YMCA. Once we started getting some really positive feedback, people started asking us for catering. I mean, people in Detroit also were leaving notes for us at these gyms asking where they could get this, right? And mind you, we had no idea what we were doing. I mean, we were going to the market, getting the freshest produce possible. Like we would show up before they were open to find the Swiss chard, the romaine, the collard greens, so we could hand pick out the leaves and then put together some of Ryan's creations, and then we'd just show up and serve these. But we didn't know where it was going to go from there. So people started asking us for catering. We said, yeah, absolutely. I had no idea what we're doing, just saying yes and figuring it out.
Yes.
And then COVID happened, of course. And so that was an actual transition point for us to start thinking through the model and working towards what this would really look like. And actually further right before that is where, as you had mentioned, I realized it was really important to get some hands-on operating experience. So I went and I got a job. Whoever would hire me, I got a job at Jimmy John's actually for $10 an hour to just work as a sandwich maker so that I could get in the trenches and understand if I was going to be a leader of this concept, I needed to know exactly what it was like to do the job at the fundamental level. And that was one of the most eye-opening experiences I could have had. So all of this sort of happened pre-COVID. And then we realized, okay, let's formulate the plan to really bring this to market in a material way and evolve from this pop-up brand to a legitimate brand. So we had to go out and find a space, find partners, develop a brand, get our supply chain, figure out our menu, figure out a team, and got open for business actually as a formal launch as a brand in March of 2022. So we've been formally launched as a brand that's an operating brand since March of 2022 when we opened our first flagship fast casual location. And at this juncture, 2026, we've now launched as a franchise brand to scale it to communities everywhere, all over the country.
So in 2022, where was this flagship store?
Detroit. Right in the Rivertown area. So right down the street, honestly, from where LC grew up.
Oh, fantastic. So Detroit, it's interesting. I mean, you ended up in Detroit. That's where the three of you ended up coming together. Detroit is one of America's cities that is making a comeback. And let me, I'm so involved in this conversation, I forget. Let me tell folks, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. We are going all in with Marc Howland, who is the co-founder. There are three, co-founder of Breadless, which is a store, a fast casual. Is that what you called it?
Fast casual franchise brand.
Franchise brand founded in Detroit. So there's something happening in our cities that is happening in Detroit that I think is worth noting. I'm from Baltimore. The same thing is happening there. There's this beautiful resurgence of interest and culture and people either moving back home or folks who are there really acknowledging the beauty and potential of these cities that were once really flourishing and, have been somewhat on the fringes, but are definitely having a come up today. Detroit is one of them. And what can you describe what it's like now in Detroit for people who may not be there? What is the energy like, and what was it like for you founding your business there?
Yeah, well, first I would say you got to come check it out for yourself to see. But the energy is real and it's infectious. And there are so many people who are not from Detroit or have heard stories about Detroit, came and visited, and are like, should I be moving here?
Right.
Because it's an incredible place to be. I mean, it's number one, as you stated, just from an economical perspective and a growth perspective, the city by the numbers is growing. It actually, for the past several years, it's grown every single year. There's been an incredible amount of investment downtown as well. So you see just a lot of businesses coming down there, a lot of restaurants coming down there, a lot of entertainment coming down there as well. Me and my wife, co-founder, live right on the river, right downtown as well, with our two children. So it's a great place to be for families. It's a great place to be for young professionals. There's a real strong entrepreneurial community as well. There's so many organizations that are geared towards growth and like-minded people elevating the city, but also creating concepts that can scale outside of the city. And that's the energy that we experience. I mean, I feel like the city of Detroit has come around us in a major way. And the supply chain, also from a food brand perspective, the supply chain is incredibly robust. And even there's a really unique stat. I mean, Detroit has one of the largest concentrations of urban gardens and farms in the nation. There's over 100 urban gardens and farms in the city of Detroit as well. And so where people are utilizing the vastness of the city and growing fresh produce. So they're able to connect the dots between what's locally grown and what's being served to people in the community. And so for all these reasons, and just this infectious energy and this excitement of being really this underdog story type of town that is on the forefront, particularly as it relates to what's happening in sports and the Lions, the NFL draft, and the Tigers, and I mean, just really, and the Pistons now too. I mean, it's just really been being elevated in a big way from not only just economics, but the investment and the young people coming there, but also, of course, sports, which is a core fabric of any town. And then as an entrepreneur, there's just been a lot of resources that have come around us and are excited about the fact, of course, that we chose to make Detroit our home.
I love that. I have a very dear friend who is a fashion designer who was in New York for probably 30 years. She's from Detroit, went back there. Tracy Reese is her name. I don't know if you know her, but she came back home. And she's probably been there maybe 5 or 6 years at this point for the same reason, just like, my city, y'all better check for my city. And so I love hearing what's happening with young people coming into Detroit and making it work. I think for our country, it's really beautiful to see that we are infusing creativity and resources into these urban centers. Kind of like, I mean, that's how it was for so many years. I mean, Detroit it's Motown.
100%. And I'll be honest, I didn't know that we were going to launch Breadless in Detroit. It just kind of happened organically because, as mentioned, I had spent the majority of my professional career in Manhattan. Right?
Sure.
I was in Financial District, Times Square area, Hell's Kitchen area, working at these firms. So when I initially had recognized the problem and the market opportunity for Breadless, I was initially picturing it in the environment that I had mostly been working in, which was the Northeast and New York and Boston and all these markets. And then Detroit just kind of happened because my wife was there in business school, and it was a similar neighborhood to where I had grown up in Cleveland. And we just started testing it because it was convenient. And then the community was craving it. The community was like, what is this? How can I get this? And I was like, that is interesting. Like, people are demanding and craving a super green sandwich with fresh produce and chef crafted ingredients, but in a portable, convenient way that serves their needs and gives them fuel to be their best selves in Detroit. And so to me, that was so powerful. And I was like, man, if we like that, to me, it was even more reassuring and made me even more excited about the future of building this brand as a nationwide brand, because in the city like Detroit that some may have overlooked as having demand for innovative, health forward, crave-worthy food, we were doing it right there in these gyms to evolve into the riverfront community in the neighborhood. That's one of the most highly diverse neighborhoods that I guarantee you most people would not have gone. And we are thriving there. And we're so proud that that was our foundation and excited to share Breadless with the world.
I love that. So I want to talk a little bit about your working at Jimmy John's. That chain is very successful. And this, I believe, isn't it a franchise business?
Yes, absolutely.
So you worked at a place starting entry level, but at a place that could serve as a model. Did you have all that conscious awareness that this is what you were doing when you went to work there, or were you just trying to figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I had recognized, at the time, I just said I want to get a job anywhere that was a sort of quick service or fast casual that did sandwiches where I could just get some experience. And a couple places turned me down, I'll be honest, because they looked at my resume, and as you can imagine,
you're like, why?
What is going on here? Literally. And one of the brands said, it's clear that you're not going to be around for very long, and I don't want to train you if you're going to leave. And so, I had to respect that 100%. So I had to revise my strategy for when I approached Jimmy John's. So the strategy was, because sure enough, the GM of the location that I applied for looked at my resume and was like, what's going on here? He's like, why do you want to work it for $10 an hour? And I said, well, to be honest, at some point in my life, I think I would like to be an operator and open a restaurant. My wife's in business school here. I'm here for the summer. I'm Serve Safe Manager certified, so I understand all of what I would need to know. And I'm only asking for $10 an hour, and I will be one of your highest, one of your highest energy go-getter employees who puts a smile on your face and does exactly what you say to do day in and day out, and will be reliable and show up when you expect me to show up, etc. And this person was then, this was a really high turnover environment where you never know if somebody's going to show up and how long they're going to be there. So in that case, it was too easy for him to say yes to allow me to start. And
that was a good yes.
It worked out. And so, but to your question on the reason to be able to get that experience and that brand is yes. I mean, obviously a brand that has done really well for themselves in creating one of the best in the industry at having system and processes to set people up and franchisees up for success. So I was just in a learning mode, not from an aspect of I knew exactly what it was going to be for Breadless, but I wanted to see how a large brand executes systems and processes at the hyper concentrated local level and how that translates into the day-to-day experience for the employee there, and what I could learn from that to set our future employees and potential future franchisees up for success. So it was from a process and systems perspective, and also just an ability to fully appreciate the role, so that if there's anybody who I'm looking at and expecting to do something, know that I may be technically your boss, but don't get it twisted. Like I'm dirty in the kitchen as well, and I can make it happen, right? So I think that was a really important aspect to it also.
So as you're doing the $10 an hour job, you have the mind for learning systems and processes. Were you constantly asking questions and so that you would understand how they worked? And if you were, was that ever annoying? Because the curious one can sometimes be like, look, brother, shut up and go do that. What was happening?
Yeah, I'm just the kind of guy who's always, you put me in any environment and I'm asking a million questions. That's just the nature of who I am. So my attitude was, let me show up and let me add value where I can, so that you like having me here, number one. Because in any job, right, it's can you do the job? Is it clear? Are you able to do the job? Are you willing to do the job? And do people want to work with you? Right. So those are three aspects that I sort of learned. And so as I was coming into this new environment, I was like, prove that I can do the job, prove that I'm willing to do the job and have positive attitude. And then do people want to work with me? So am I a team player? And am I positive contributor to culture or a net retractor. So that was my mentality as when I came in. I was always trying to learn everything. So how do you do this? Or why do we do that? Right. Tell me how to use that, let me learn how to use register. How do you do that? Oh, what's this? So yes, 150%. I'm that guy. And
I can tell you're that guy, but how did it go over well all the time, or like at least most of the time?
I think part of the reason it went over well was most of the other employees or team members were college students that were really young. So, I had on my hat and I had my t-shirt on, and I was just in the mix like I was one of them, right? And so it all came across as really collegial and curious and always trying to do anything for the benefit of the team. So I try to have the lens, and honestly, it was a really, really positive experience. Like
I love that.
So much so that actually the person who I was working for came to work at Breadless. So it was really positive.
What a testament, right? That's fantastic. So what would you say, what are some key learnings that you had from Jimmy John's that you took this incredibly successful franchise sandwich business, that you took to Breadless to help fortify, this business that you were just launching?
I love the question because there's always something that you can learn from an exact situation. And I'm still to this day in certain scenarios trying to think back to what did I experience and how was that something I can translate. But at a super high level, the aspect of making no assumptions, I think was one thing that I took away, which is don't assume that somebody is going to do something or that they're going to know how to do something. Make it clear and make it an expectation and have a checklist for it and a system and a process that it's followed and have accountability in that so that you're actually setting people up for success. And also it was this mindset of realizing people want to succeed generally, and they want to do well. And I think it's a mindset of let's assume people want to do well. How can we help them do well? And a part of that comes down to, if somebody fails, was it their fault because they didn't want to do it? Or was it my fault because I didn't set them up for success and giving them the tools necessary to succeed? And so that was a mindset that I took away from it, which is they have done a really good job at helping you to not fail because they've learned this and in the process in building a huge brand, have created systems and processes that don't make any assumptions. Everything is spelled out. They over-process everything. And they do that to make sure that it's clear and it's a system that can be followed repeatedly anywhere in the country. And that's one thing that I took away. And it just as one example.
That is an excellent example. I'm just thinking of something that happened to me today. So I'm a writer first, and I'm working on a book, and I got an email giving me information about next steps. And it was filled with acronyms or, like just letters. I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And I mean, I work in this field. I didn't know what it meant because there is a language that people within that part of the industry use, and I'm not in that part of the industry. So I had to say, I don't know what that means. Please tell me what that means. And then there was an explanation. And why I thought of it as you're sharing this, Marc, is sometimes we make assumptions that have to do with what we think people's intelligence is. And actually, I think it's more knowledge. Like, what information do you need? And if you make a level playing field of information, here's what you need to know in the most simple terms. Here's how you do something in the most simple terms. Then the smartest person and the not as smart person, or the person who isn't informed about that particular thing, can know it. So I love that point that you're making. I hope everybody who is listening to you and to this conversation really took it in. It is so important. If you explain it so everybody understands and write it down so they can refer to it later without somebody saying it to them, then they are being set up for success. I think that's brilliant.
100%. So
your business you in COVID, when everything was shut down and people are trying to figure out what to do, were you doing the sandwiches then? Were people going to the gym during COVID?
So it was right before COVID. We were doing all of the gym pop-ups, the catering pop-ups, and of course, COVID became a natural point for us to really think about transitioning the business, because all of those sort of pop-up operations had to cease. But we knew that that wasn't something that we were going to scale anyways. Like that,
Right.
all period before was really a prototype and testing and just getting
Right.
feedback and experimentation. And COVID was a natural point for us to then take all those learnings and actually work on a proper plan for launching the brand in a real physical way, and putting together the plan to scale in all aspects, from finding a location. And we didn't know how to do any of this, right? Because we had
Right.
there was no playbook for anything that we're doing, because our brand is something that has never been done before. So there were all the basic blocking and tackling that anybody who's opening a restaurant would have to do, which is, let's go identify a proper space. Then we have to negotiate a lease. Then we have to figure out who's going to be the architect. Then we have to figure out who's going to do construction. We have to design it. We have to figure out our supply chain. We have to figure out the actual menu, because at the time it was just selling 3 sandwiches out of brown paper bags. Now we need to have a full menu as a restaurant, right? How are we going to price everything? What was all going to be the tech stack and the equipment that we were going to use? Where were we going to source all this stuff? How are we going to recruit a team? How are we going to train this team? None of this stuff was known information, and we had to figure out from day zero, and launch in March of 2022. So that's really where it was a day-to-day operation when we opened our first restaurant in the Rivertown area of Detroit in March of 2022. So that was an evolution, and honestly, we opened the same week almost that they had lifted the mask mandate. So that actually affected how we opened, because we had glass hanging from the ceiling. So when people came up to order, right, we couldn't hear anything. So we had to do some pivoting on the fly as well.
Oh, wow. Hey, guys, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. We are speaking with Marc Howland. He is the CEO of Breadless, a fast casual food business, and it is in Detroit and about to be global as a franchise business, which is very, very exciting. I want to ask you about the menu, because this notion of Breadless, what it does beg lots of questions, but one of them being, okay, how is it a sandwich if it doesn't have bread on it? What makes it a sandwich, and what is in that sandwich?
Yeah, so we're all about the fuel and not the filler. So ultimately, our concept, our sandwiches, our super green sandwiches, we call them super green sandwiches, are packed with protein forward, fresh ingredients that are chef inspired. So from our herb roasted chicken to our jerk chicken to our falafel to our braised beef, these are all chef crafted, oven roasted, in-house proteins with the freshest ingredients possible, the freshest veggies possible, all wrapped around our signature super greens like Swiss chard, romaine, collard greens, where you're going to get something that is portable, that tastes delicious, that you're going to crave again and again and again, but that after you eat it, you're going to feel amazing. You're going to feel like you can go run a mile, because you're going to feel energized, because it's giving you all the nutrients you need, all the protein you need without any excess calories or filler. And super greens are actually the healthiest thing you can possibly eat on planet Earth. So for those reasons, it's highly unique, and it's just a delicious product and experience, and your body will thank you for it. You feel excellent after you eat it, so you can conquer your goals. That's why our slogan tagline is fuel your next. So whether it's your next meeting, your next goal, your next competition, whatever it is, we're the fuel to help you get there. And it's all because we put the freshest ingredients, chef crafted, wrapped in the healthiest thing you can possibly eat, that serves as also a phenomenal sturdy vessel for your super green sandwich.
So the greens, these super greens that you're using, you say wrapped. It's not like stacked. It's the greens are wrapped around the food.
Yeah, so we have a really unique way that we go about preparing one of our super green sandwiches, which is, you're going to have to try one for yourself to truly experience it. But the eating experience is going to be more comparable to a sandwich than a wrap. But we do contain it in such a way that you sort of peel as you go, like you were eating a burrito. You don't just take the whole thing out of the wrapper, but it's going to be prepared. We have a slogan that says "First bite matters," and so that is all about the presentation, how it's tightly wrapped and structured, so that first bite is going to have all of the ingredients pushed forward, so it's visually highly appealing, and all the ingredients are in that first bite. But the leaf is going to fully encapsulate it. But we think of a sandwich as something that is satiating with all the flavors in one bite. That's really sort of the savory, great experience. And that is related to a sandwich versus a wrap. I think of a wrap as something that's not going to fully get it done and kind of be a more lighter experience, whereas ours are satiating and flavor forward, which is why we call them sandwiches. But the actual eating experience is going to be something that is kind of like a hybrid, unique to Breadless type of model, but is designed in such a way to give you a consistent experience every single time as a customer.
So you're on the runway for a franchise right now. I'm curious about when you have to replicate, that especially this is a differently made sandwich. So how do you have those systems and instructions in place so that when it's made at the shop in San Diego and the shop in Baltimore and in Brooklyn, that it's exactly the same?
Yeah, that's exactly what we spent the last 4+ years figuring out, which was as somebody who also was a former athlete, I really am in tune with this aspect of there's coaches, right? You have the coaching and administrative staff, and then you have the players. The players' job is to just go on the field and execute the plays, but they can't do it without the coaches and the playbook, and the coaches can't do it without the players. But together, they come together to win championships. And that is really similar to how I think about our model and scaling as a franchisor. With us as a franchisor, we're the coach. We've worked meticulously over the past 4+ years to develop the system, the process, the playbook that you then as a player become a draft pick of ours to then execute the playbook for success. So that playbook comes down to how we sort of started this conversation on make no assumptions. Right. Assume that they know nothing, and how can we come in and indoctrinate you into our brand and our system and our process and teach you in such a way that if you're starting at entry level, you can come in your first day and make an impact. That takes time, that takes effort, that takes a meticulous and methodical approach, and that's what we've done over the past 4 years so that somebody could come into the model and execute. We've also been really, really thoughtful around just the needs. So like we have no hoods, we have no grills, no fryers, so that people don't have to worry about, burning themselves and having all the nuances that come with that. We keep the model simple. I did learn from some of the best organizations as well, like how can we keep our equipment package relatively simplistic as well? How can we ensure every aspect of this becomes something that as somebody who knows nothing can come in and figure out how to execute? How you make a sandwich at Breadless becomes one of the first things you learn as well. And we have a really specific process to go through where somebody, if you don't know anything about it, it's going to look really difficult and specific, which it is. But once you come in and you learn our techniques, our model and approach, we teach it in such a way that you can become a sandwich master in a very short period of time. But that takes the fact that that's our core focus. Like that's what we do. And we try to be the best at what we do so that we get 1% better every single day. And even where we are now is not where we're going to be even a year from now, because we're constantly improving, constantly getting better. But we are at a point where we feel really great about the playbook, systems, and process where we could bring on players or franchisees who together are going to win championships with us.
Yeah, I love the sports imagery. So you mentioned some of these greens, and collard greens being one of them. I need to ask, is Are the greens cooked at all? Because how do you eat a collard leaf if it isn't softer than, when it comes out of the ground?
You should ask some of our guests. They love some crisp, freshly washed raw collards. Like all of our leafy super greens for our sandwiches are just fresh. So Swiss chard, we've experimented with like every single leafy green. What we landed on, we use Swiss chard, we use romaine, and we use collard greens. Now most of our sandwiches come by default. They will come by default on either Swiss chard or romaine, and collard is a substitute that some people specifically request and based on their prerogative. But then what we also offer are the ability to have braised greens for like our bowls. So in addition to our super green sandwiches, we offer power bowls. Our power bowls have bases of brown rice or cauliflower rice or braised collard greens or salad greens, but we will cook down the collards as well and serve them as braised collards in our bowl, which are also delicious and popular. But we're all about creating options to give people feel good fuel. So whatever format you're looking for, whether you want a super green sandwich, whether you want a power bowl with brown rice and heavy protein, these are all clean, unprocessed foods that are going to leave you feeling great after you eat. We also have a limited selection of smoothies. So we try to keep the menu pretty tight with 7-course sandwiches. You can make any sandwich into a salad, 3-core power bowls, 3-core smoothies, and you can customize as you see fit.
Are you sourcing the greens from these farms that you mentioned earlier? There's so many farms in Detroit that are small farms creating produce. Are you using those farms, or how are you sourcing your produce?
Yeah, so particularly as we're working on the national expansion strategy, we have plan A, plan B, plan C, and backups for each case. I think we're one thing I do love is that there is a very robust supply chain for some of these super greens. Just nobody using them in the same capacity in which we're using them. But we have regional suppliers for our produce who then source as locally as they can in their specific regions, so that the produce is as fresh as possible wherever that we're opening. So yes, given now that we're in Michigan, we have local farms in Michigan that our regional supplier in Michigan will source from. That said, given that, of course, different times of year, things grow better in certain areas. So we have sort of plan A during certain parts of the year and plan B and plan C at each point in the year. So there are certain times of the year where we are getting some produce from different farms just based on the grow season for those particular items. But we've set it up to be able to be at a nationwide level.
So I see that thinking, and that's that business mind at work. It's not just this local thing, which, by the way, even if you weren't franchising, just finding the right things even in your own town where you are takes a lot of focus and clarity and vetting and all of those things to make sure that you've got the quality that you're looking for. But then having the mind to build it out into a franchise and to be able to replicate this and ensure that the quality that you have promised remains consistent that's a big task.
Well, yeah. So one of the things that came up too was like we have specific specs that we require for our leaves. Like like our suppliers know that our Swiss chard should be a certain length by a certain width, and that should look a certain way, that we want to have a certain taste profile for. Not every single thing we can 100% control right now, but we still have a North Star and a guidepost to what they're looking for, and we work with these suppliers on that. And as mentioned, when we got started, right, we were just going to Eastern Market in Detroit or market, and before anybody could be there to hand pick out the freshest produce possible, and then we try to build relationships with those individual suppliers. But then we realized, okay, what if there's a problem with that supplier and we still need our produce, right? So we had to build more relationships, and then we realized, okay, we need somebody to help us to manage this. So we need a produce distributor who understands our brand inside and out and wants to work with us as a partner to understand our specs, to then work on behalf of us with these various local partners. And that's what we was set up. And then we said, okay, we're going to ultimately, to your point, need to replicate that in every market. So there are things like non-produce. So our breadless chicken or our breadless beef and things like that, these can be sourced through like a single distributor at sort of a nationwide level. But produce, we think particularly needs to be more local. And so that's the reason why the same distributor that we have in the Midwest is going to be a different distributor in different regions, because they know the ins and outs of the farms there and the relationships and can adapt the breadless specs to make it happen. But yeah, these are all learnings that we've had to have as we're looking to grow and scale this, because of your point, consistency, that brand consistency is essential, so that when we're in New York, when we're in Dallas, when we're in Miami, when we're in Atlanta, when we're in all these markets, the experience is exactly the same as it is in Detroit.
Excellent. Hey guys, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. We are speaking with Marc Howland, CEO of Breadless. And Marc, we just have even less than 5 minutes. So during the time that we have left, I want to talk about what is top of mind for so many people. This scare about lettuce. You know, this is a national fear that is valid. People have gotten very ill consuming lettuce. We think of lettuce and produce as the healthiest things that you can eat. This is foundational to your business. How has the scare impacted your business, and what does it mean, and what are you doing about it?
Yeah, so just like everybody, we heard about the news, and we're also immediately thinking, let's investigate as soon as humanly possible to see what this is about and who does it affect. So the first thing we did was reach out to our suppliers, our regional distributors, as we mentioned, and asked who it's affecting and how. And we learned that the largest components of this were bagged, pre-washed greens, iceberg lettuce, and they informed us that none of the breadless product lines were affected, and we don't use any bagged lettuce or pre-washed lettuce, and none the super greens that we use were not part of the investigation. So breadless was not impacted in any way, but we immediately jumped on it just to ensure, and we even put out a statement to our customer base as well, letting them know, hey, you can continue to trust and rely upon Breadless. Know that we are aware of this. We're taking every single precaution. We do operate to the highest level in cleanliness and product standards, but also none of our leafy greens are affected, and our signature Swiss chard leaf has never been even in the conversation at all. And we don't use iceberg lettuce at all on our menu, nor do we do pre-washed or bagged lettuce. Everything comes in freshly sourced and washed in-house. So we've been really grateful and thankful to have not been affected, but we certainly are always have our eyes and ears to what's going on.
It's amazing. The notion of pre-washed, triple washed lettuce, I mean, that became a way to make food, to make salads, to make whatever so much quicker. And now people are learning, oops, you better wash those greens, which it did seem too good to be true anyway. And now we're saying, oh, it really is too good to be true. But I imagine that, in fact, I don't even have to imagine. I know people are thinking twice and three times before ordering a salad somewhere, for the reason, well, how do I know if those greens were washed? And so as you look to, as you're franchising, that could still be a little, back of the head question for some people. Do I take the risk? And so as you are building out your business, is this something you feel you're going to have to continue to talk about?
You never know, right? That said, I think that this is something that the market will get a handle on, understand the root cause, and people are going to go back to eating what's going to enable their body to feel great. And I think very thankful at Breadless side, we haven't seen a huge impact, and the results are not, the actual outcomes of this are not impacting our supply chain at all. And we also remind people that if it is in a time where people are a little bit concerned, hey, if you don't want to eat super greens, come get your power bowl at Breadless as well.
There you go.
So we, do the brown rice, cauliflower rice, and braised collard green bowls or smoothies. I mean, we've got something for everybody at Breadless, whether you want super greens or you want still unprocessed feel good fuel. But we're still seeing people come and get a super green sandwich every single day. And I really just think it's about being ahead of things as a brand and establishing that trust. and they trust us that we're going to be fresh, right? That this is going to be something that we take it upon ourselves to get the freshest produce, and we're washing it in house to protect you.
Excellent. When is the franchise scheduled to launch?
Yeah, so since we launched as a franchise brand just this year, I mean, the inbound interest has been incredible. We've had hundreds of people go to our website at franchise.eatbreadless.com and fill out our highly comprehensive form to get to learn more about you, and have been moving a lot of these people through the process in the funnel. And so we're really just excited to be at this point where we're going to be bringing these feel-good fuel, powering people's goals across the country, and are working through these draft picks, as we call it, right now, to make some awards, and there's going to be some announcements soon.
Excellent. Well, we can't wait to hear. Please make sure you let us know when it all is happening. But it sure has been exciting to talk to you. Congratulations on your business. I love hearing the fact that you are three working together so well. That is very inspiring. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor and a privilege.
And thank you to all of you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I want a sandwich. I want to taste the collard green sandwich, don't you? I guess we have to go to Detroit for now, but soon other places. Hey, until next time, have a great day and make it count.